Hey, just wanted to remind you that this month my patrons voted on what I'd review. If you'd like to get in on that and make me dance like a monkey to your tune, support the show.
So let's get some cartoons and vodka and do them all night long. Are you ready for some fun? Drink 'em down, drink 'em down, drink 'em down. Drink 'em down, drink 'em down, drink 'em down. Oh.
So as I've stated many times on the show, I can't really look at long-running shonen mangas here. It would take me like a 20-minute video just to talk about the start of One Piece to them finally reaching the Grand Line. And I'd probably be skipping on the Sanji stuff. So instead, I'm going to look at one arc of One Piece, the Rescuing Robin from Enies Lobby arc. And more specifically, we're going to examine the fights of this arc. Which isn't to say that there's nothing interesting in the story worth dissecting. I actually have a lot of thoughts about how Rescuing Robin really mirrors the Rescuing Nami stuff from much earlier in the manga. But, we're just going to focus on the fights for now, and I am skipping ahead a little. We're going to go right to when the two sides face off on the bridge, which means I am leaving out some good fights, but this is better for the structure. Also, a couple years ago, I did a video on the Going Merry, which is pretty damn central to this arc, so, maybe go watch that if you want some more stuff. Oh, and I'm going to be recreating the fights with amiibos. And a Gumby. Guess who he is. Alright, so this fight is actually a great warm-up match between Blueno Bullman and Luffy, who ran ahead. This is a great squash match because Blueno is, by the bad guy's own ranking system, kind of mid-tier. He's also not a jokester, so he's going to take this fight seriously without getting caught up in shenanigans. But he clearly needs to go so that the numbers match up later. Now every member of the CP9 has access to 6 techniques: the Shigan finger stab, the Rankyu slicing kick, Tekai that hardens the body, the Soru movement booster, the Geppo air hop, and the Kamiye dodge move. And Luffy is still rocking his rubber techniques in basic mode at this point. Fight opens with Blueno being a bit cocky after the beatdown they handed out back at the shipyards, which Luffy immediately reverses by tornado punching right through his Tekai. Luffy then follows up by catching Hornboy mid-speed dodge and throwing him into the ground. So this is going really good for Luffy, but then Blueno pulls out this crazy Tekai-enhanced kick combo. And then the real kicker is when he pulls out his door fruit that lets him turn into anything into doors, including Luffy's eyes into revolving doors. But Luffy is a badass and manages to dodge that combo and decides this fight is worth pulling out his latest trump card, Second Gear. As the name implies, it's a general booster. Everything he does is faster and stronger, which, considering his base stats, is pretty freaking scary. Blueno has to make a door in the air just to catch his breath, and the moment he steps back into the fight, he starts getting wrecked again. He tries to tank Luffy's jet bazooka with his best Tekai, and he manages to stay on his feet just long enough for Luffy to consider pulling out his next power-up. Alright, so that was a fantastic appetizer fight. Luffy basically stomps the mid-tier threat Blueno with no damage taken, so we are hyped to see him take on the big bad. Also, he teased us with 2 brand new techniques. Second Gear, which is Luffy but more so, and the mysterious Third Gear, which we are really hyped to see. That was so good. So now the Straw Hats are in a square-off with CP9. Yeah, that's some good showdown poses. But we have a slight problem on the Straw Hat side. Really only Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji are cut out for a straight-up fight. Nami and Chopper aren't useless in a fight, but they really aren't in the same class. Usopp is kinda useless. So, we're gonna have to get the new character Frankie to join their side. Frankie is a cyborg, but he's immediately more reliable in a straight-up fight. But he's also a goofball, so we don't expect him to stay in for the big boys. After establishing the magic handcuff key MacGuffin that means everyone needs to get beat down, we get the crew splitting up. Frankie runs into Zippermouth, Nami runs into Kabuki Hair, Zoro teams up with the Square Nose Guy, and Sanji runs into the Fetish Maid Secretary, and Usopp catches Wolfman napping on the job. Now that creates a bit of an issue. Luffy still hasn't even met Lucio. We can't have our big fights getting done too soon. So after a bit of sparring, Zoro and Square Nose accidentally smash up the floor because Nose isn't used to his new giraffe powers. They fall into Usopp and Wolf Guy's fight, and because Usopp is a hijinks maker, he and Zoro end up handcuffed together. Neither Wolf Guy or Giraffe really want to win on a cheap technicality, so they aren't going to rush this fight to an end. That puts these two big guys on hold. Also, for a bit, Zoro has Usopp act as his other sword hand. Now, Nami is getting bodied by Mr. Kabuki Hair. His grappler techniques are a bad pair for her weather manipulation rod. Chopper has to make the save, but in doing so, he uses his Rumble Ball, which only lasts for 3 minutes and can only be used once a day. That ain't good. Meanwhile, Sanji can't actually bring himself to kick a woman, and that makes the fight go really badly when she notices that he's bluffing. Sanji crashes down in front of Nami in a strange, shiny form. Also, Frankie's fight with Zippermouth isn't going great because he's low on cola fuel. So, we get a fight swap. Nami goes upstairs to deal with the fetish secretary, and Chopper takes over for Kabuki Man. Also, we get a nice little tease of third gear as Luffy uses it to just wreck a gigantic steel door. We don't get to see him actually use it, but we do get to see the bizarre side effect of him shrinking. Frankie stumbles into the kitchen just as Chopper is locking his opponent into an industrial fridge. After a quick comedy routine with using different drinks, Frankie finally gets his cola and is ready to wreck Mr. Kappa's face. I honestly wish I had more time for this fight because it's really fun, but suffice it to say that Frankie not being a fruit user and therefore able to swim is a nice change. Things are not going swimmingly for Chopper. He took an extra dose of Rumble, so whatever form he switches into is just kind of random. He's about to get killed, so he takes one more dose of Rumble and turns into this absolute unit. So this is what happens when magic fruit goes wild. Chopper completely wrecks Kabuki Man in a really brutal fashion. And then he's completely lost his ability for rational thought and starts attacking Frankie before climbing the tower. We are at the halfway point for the battles. Sanji and Zoro still haven't committed to their fights. Nami is taking on Princess Soapland. Frankie won his fight and Chopper went berserk. And Luffy has finally encountered Lucio. It's getting exciting! Nami's fight with Bubbles isn't going great. She got the full body slippery treatment. The fight gets interrupted by a mad Chopper who breaks through the wall and knocks the bathtub on top of Sanji, which reveals the weakness of the soap power, which is water. Nami's climate tact got a major upgrade after the last arc, granting her a lot more control over the weather in fights. Her heat illusions pair really well with her lightning clouds that require setup time for a devastating attack. In terms of physical strength, Bubbles completely dominates her, but Nami wins by eating an attack to set up one last lightning bolt. This is probably Nami's first major one-on-one win, so it feels really satisfying for her. Oh, and Bubbles had the key to Zoro and Usopp's handcuffs, so that narrative stalling tactic is finally taken care of. Zoro starts getting serious with Giraffe Man, while Usopp, like a dumbass, falls for a blatant lie and gets stabbed by Wolfman Chew. But then Sanji steps in for his true opponent for this fight, and tells Usopp to not worry about what he can't do, and instead focus on what he can do. Before we move on, let's not forget about Demon Chopper. Frankie knocks him into the ocean, canceling out the transformation. Frankie then runs off after Luffy in order to give some keys to help Robin. Okay, this is probably the best fight I can remember Sanji ever having. Wolf Guy is fast and lethal, and he can actually use the Tekai defense while moving. It's not an unfavorable matchup for Sanji, but it really pushes him. What eventually turns the tide of battle is when Sanji invents a new technique where he uses friction to set his foot on fire. Tekai absorbs impact, not fire. Sadly, Zoro's fight is nowhere near as interesting. The Giraffe Guy has some really crazy techniques, but in the end it's not a tactics or a speed win for Zoro. He just invents some BS new move that creates more arms. He basically believed harder than this guy. Which can totally work, but this guy is just a heavy for someone else's schemes. They can't all be winners. Alright, so we are just down to Luffy and Lucio. So far, the fight has been a straight brawl, with neither Luffy or Lucio taking the advantage or pulling out their crazy techniques. Frankie stumbles in and is quickly shown to have no business in this fight. Luffy makes an opening with Jet Pistol so Frankie can run ahead and help Robin, and now Lucio gets serious by going into his Leopard Man form. Now it's getting good. Luffy is using his new double edge technique, which definitely gives him the advantage over Lucio, but Lucio isn't out of tricks yet and picks up on how second gear really drains Luffy. Also, his finger shigons are way more deadly when he has claws. Luffy finally pulls out third gear, which he activates by inflating his thumb like a cartoon character blowing themselves up. Side note, I swear there was an episode of SWAT Cats where the blue and pink husband and wife monsters blew into their thumbs to grow building sized. No, I couldn't find evidence of this, but I have a very clear memory of it happening. Or maybe it was Street Sharks, I don't know! Anyway, Luffy is literally inflating his bones, which does sound goofy as hell. So Luffy decides to tank it, and that was a mistake. The giant punch completely wrecks him, and he is only saved from falling into the ocean by a marine battleship that just rolled in. The two proceed to utterly wreck this boat, but the main issue with third gear is that the attacks are really predictable and easy to dodge. Also, the temporary smallness almost cost Luffy his life, but Lucio underestimated the damage that one punch did. We are down to the wire. Lucio is pulling out his final shockwave technique, and Luffy is leaning on second gear until it kills him. After one last pep talk from Usopp gives Luffy the mental boost he needs, he pulls out Jet Gatling, which just completely wrecks Lucio's face. Wow, that was a hell of a battle, wasn't it? The pacing was almost perfect. We start out with establishing how dangerous the enemies are. Luffy gets to beat down an easy opponent before the big event, and then all the characters pair off for a really hype fight. And, you know, sometimes it's comedic, like with Frankie, or sometimes it's tense, like with Chopper losing his mind. But even Usopp got something to do, using his sniper powers to keep Robin from getting carted off, which I'm only mentioning now because there is so much good stuff in this arc. So that was the breakdown of the pacing and fights of a really good shonen action manga, and that was only like a third of the good stuff in the Enies Lobby arc. Like, this is some quality One Piece. If you like this video and it gets good response, I might do an episode just on the Robin stuff. And and go watch the Going Merry episode, I already mentioned that. And yeah, whew, that was a lot of fun. Till next time, I'm Pluto Burns, and this has been Eagle Land. Oh, and don't forget, July is the 100th episode of this show. I'm gonna give you a hint what it's gonna be about. It's about people with psychic power.